The grille in palmistry is known as this sort of chessboard-like palmar marking, and essentially a grille is a destructive sign, and it's because the lines in palmistry quite simply are a movement of energy, a certain sort of journey in a particular area or aspect of the person. And so when we see an obstruction, it presents itself as a line cutting through it. And so a grille essentially is a cross section of strands. It's a bit like a tangled mess of worms. When you open a can of worms and you tip it out onto the floor, this is kind of what you get. It's work that needs to be done in a certain area on the palm, on a certain area of that person. And the grille is most commonly found on the Venus Mount, and it is associated with infertility or fertility issues, at least reproductive organs, some sort of damage there or inability to function properly. It's also associated with a need for affection and affirmation. Perhaps a person with a grille on the Venus Mount is a little bit clingy, and so work needs to be done there in order to sort of love themselves, perhaps, or work through their sort of deep-rooted psychological issues with some cognitive behavioral therapy, perhaps, or something similar. A grille found on inner Mars or lower Mars, or Mars positive as it's sometimes referred to confusingly, is said to be irritability and an issue with someone's sort of motivational and aggressive side, their determination, their drive, their nature where drive is concerned, their inner drive. There's a bit of a mess there. And work needs to be done in order to successfully work with others. And there may well be some anger issues as well, and you can look for that in other areas of the palm, as in when the thumb swoops in and is sort of wasted in the second phalanx and then balloons out like this. I mean, that's a silly example, but you get my meaning, and it's known as the murderer's thumb in medieval palmistry, and it sort of provides a sort of fizzy bottle effect, a champagne cork about to explode effect, and as I say, an anger issue there, temper flare-ups or whatever. But this shows an irritability and an unsociable and cantankerous behavioral issues. Now, moving up to Jupiter, the problem that may well present itself here, Jupiter is the place of ambition, ego, decision-making, authority, pride. And so it could be destruction, a destructive nature through ego, overinflated sort of pride, or arrogance. So again, work needs to be done here to rein in the ego. And again, you'll see other signs in the palm with an overly long Jupiter finger, as in one that reaches past halfway of the first phalanx of Saturn, or even reaching as long as the Saturn finger itself. And that shows a kind of superiority complex. So, as always in palmistry, one sign alone is never good enough to conclude an accurate sort of diagnosis. We always need, within almost all cases anyway, more than one sign to draw up some accuracy. Now, a grille on the Mercury Mount, and remember, Mercury is this place of communication and expression. It's a place of learning as well. A grille here is instability, but also it's a sign of deceit, and one of the signs of deceit, at least anyway, a sign of potential untruthfulness. And again, work needs to be done here. You might see this in the compulsive liar, perhaps. Now, a grille on Luna. Luna is the place of imagination and dreams and thoughts and ideas. It's this well which we reach into to draw inspiration from within. And here, when we see a grille, it shows destruction through over imagination, over um, anxiety, over worrying. So it's thinking too much about the possibilities and using imagination in a way that's sort of destructive, self-sabotage through, what if this happens? And so when we worry too much, we end up not achieving at all. So it's better to try and fail than not to try at all. And this is what this sign shows, and this is the kind of advice I would provide for anyone that has a grille on Luna, and you'll often see that on many lined palms, and that is to say that a palm with lots and lots and lots of just lines all over the place, and it makes it a very difficult read, but it shows anxiety, over worry, and thinking too much in the future. And a person with a grille on Luna and a many lined hand needs to ground themselves and live in the present. And on that note, a many lined hand may well have the appearance of grills on every mount. So it's important to look at it to within its context, to corroborate the details accordingly. Because a palm that looks something like this, and okay, this is a ridiculous example, but the grills seen here don't mean as much because they're not isolated. They're not on their own. They're connected by convergence of other lines, and so the meaning isn't as profound. It's not as strong, and it's likely that they are, by their very nature, just warriors and overthinkers anyway. So it's important, if a palm are marking, and this is a bit of a golden rule, a rule of thumb, if you like, plenty of puns in palmistry. If the marking lies on its own, is undisturbed, untouched by other lines working its way through and touching and affecting it, the marking is far more profound and has a stronger meaning. And it's, again, we can't look at this one marking as proof. No one sign alone is strong enough to conclude accuracy. So it's important to find evidence. If you saw a grill on Venus like this, and you suspected possible fertility issues or sexual reproductive problems, you might find a bit of a bump here at the bottom of the palm. Perhaps it's a little bit sort of indented, or there's a bit of a dip there. The wrist in itself rises upwards, that recette rises upwards and shows a bit of interference there with reproductive organs. That there'd be a secondary sign there. Perhaps the health line has an island pointing towards that same issue, and again, that would show an issue with reproductive organs. Perhaps even you'd see a stunted Jupiter finger and a widened Jupiter at the base here. The third phalanx would be quite sort of thickened at the same time as this very short Jupiter finger, and that would show an inferiority complex compensated for by potentially womanizing. And then you could surmise that perhaps this is a person who has indulged in sexual relationships with lots of people, and as a result has a sexually transmitted disease. This is just conjecture here, but this is how palmistry works. It's elaborating on corroborating circumstantial evidence. There you go. I'm quite impressed with myself with that one. Perhaps also the headline dips down deep into Luna, showing a bit of a sort of a fantasist, someone who delves a little bit too deeply into their imagination, and again is someone who is perhaps overindulging in sex, and perhaps even visits prostitutes. Perhaps they have, you know, a very sort of messy girdle of Venus. Again, you know, lines that are providing this kind of tangled web shows potential damage or destruction and work that needs to be done in a certain area. Perhaps the Mercury finger leans in towards the tip of Apollo, showing appreciation for natural beauty. Again, a sign that this person is overindulging in sexual activity. So if you saw, and this is an extreme example, okay, but I'm just trying to provide a way to show how to read palms, I suppose, with one over-explained example. This would then prove that this Grille here does in fact live up to the first, you know, indication. If we didn't see any of these other signs and the Grille was found on its own like this, then you could say, well, this is someone who simply requires a lot of affirmation and is an affectionate person that also requires that affection. Then you'd also see that by a deep, strong and long, well curving heart line, as well as this person has here. This person doesn't have a Grille on their Mountain of Venus, so none of the above applies, but it's just to show you as an example. So that's a little video on Grilles in palmistry, and I hope that's cleared things up there and made some sense. And I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but I felt it necessary just to provide a bit of context as to how to read the palmar marking in this case. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. If you've got a Grille in your palms, maybe you're a bit concerned, send me an email with a picture and I can answer. I'm happy to help. I don't want any money from anyone. Perhaps you've seen Grilles in other people's and you're not sure if they're sort of isolated enough. Again, send me an image, or maybe you've got a question about this video. Let me know your thoughts anyway. But in any case, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.